Hi, in this Lightboard session we're going to talk about object store and why Mule has an object store. Now, the first thing to think about with state is, can we use an existing system that we have already? So if you're talking to a database, databases are very good at storing state. That's why they were created. If you're talking to a file systems are very good at storing state. But in some situations, we need somewhere to store little snippets of values that we need to keep a track of. So to that end, we have a concept built in to the Mule runtime called the object store. So the object store is not a relational database. It is not something that you can run queries on. It is not transactional. It has key and value. Now, with an object store, you can segment it into different chunks. So there are different partitions, but essentially it's still key value pairs. So it is not meant as a general replacement for a database. It's not meant to shift vast quantities of your customer data out of a permanent store, but it is very useful for certain types of situations where your Mule runtime needs to be the owner of certain state. So let's say we have our Mule application and we've got our app, and we need to keep a track of where we're up to with processing. Let's say we're working through a database table and we don't want to step on our existing processed records, but we don't have a column that we can put a yes/no value into the database. So to pick up only the new entries, we might want to use an object store to store a thing called a watermark. Now, a watermark is like in a flood. The water level gets up to a certain level, and unless you come along and wipe down the wall, you're not going to get it going backwards. So it's got to be a value that always goes up. So some other examples of watermarks might be things that have dates in them. So anything increasing is a candidate for using the object store to keep a watermark. There are some other things that we may need to store state in the Mule engine. So as far as if we are doing things that are quite expensive, we may want to think about caching. So it's essentially key value pairs, the value being the previous returned result. So we need somewhere to store that. In the Mule terminology, it uses object store. So there's built-in capabilities for the cache scope to use the object store. There are other things that we may need to as part of performance tuning or to get decent response time to avoid round trips, and things like if you've got tokens that you need to go out and perform some sort of login to get the value and you want to reuse it. So it's a variation of a cache, but it's for credentials and things like that. So that's object store. Now, the other options, using some sort of external data store, using an external in-memory data cache, could be something as well. So there's lots of connectors to go and talk to those other systems, but object store built into the Mule ecosystem, and there is a connector when you need to do something special.